My car was ultimately too small to fit all those paintings, so we ended up taking a police truck to the museum instead. Stella emerged from the service entrance at the back and beckoned me over.
悪いな、ステラ。
平気。倉庫で見るから。
She turned around after conveying that request.
運ぶぞ、マサキ。
はい。
Masaki took the paintings out of the truck bed and passed them to me one after another. They were counterfeits. We handled them with the utmost care. Though they were counterfeits, we handled them with the utmost care so as not to leave even a scratch. The museum employee labeled the paintings backs when we brought them into the storeroom. Smart move. They'd be in a world of trouble if they accidentally mixed those up with the ones they have in storage. Stella studied the painting leaning against the wall.
どうだ?
However, Stella just kept staring away, giving no particular indication that she'd even heard me.
天空の鐘を。
Stella turned to one of her coworkers and issued that request. The man in question carried over a painting and sat down next to the counterfeit in response.
こいつは。
The two were completely indistinguishable, at least to a layman like me. I couldn't even begin to guess which was the original and which was the fake. Absolutely everything, down to the colors, brushstrokes, and cracks in the frame, was identical. As possible as it would have been, it almost looked like someone had directly copied the painting with carbon paper.
全く同じ。レイジ、そっちをひっくり返して。
こうか。
Turned over Bells of Heaven, the one the museum had been keeping in storage, that is. There I was faced with the back of the aged wooden frame, discolored in several spots. Something was also written there. As to, asked Mamiya.
こいつは?
Checked the other one Stella was regarding. Just as I'd expected, I found the same thing written there as well.
筆跡も同じ。
Stella seemed stunned.
だが、木目は違うぞ。
However, Stella shook her head.
そこまで覚えてない。裏まで写真撮らないから。
Figures.
木のくすみ具合も同じくらいの時間が経ってる。
Just like that, Stella started comparing each of the paintings one after another. Stepped back and joined Masaki so as not to bother her.
時坂さん、
なんだ?
どちらが本物だと思い。
どちらって。
But I couldn't finish. Two identical paintings stood before Stella. Since the label was on the back, though, I couldn't tell which was which.
普通に考えれば、今持ってきたやつが贋作だろ?
ええ、自分もそう思います。ですが、その根拠は
科学鑑定みたいなのはできないのか?
国内には設備も技師も揃ってない。絵の具の成分分析は元の絵が壊れるから嫌。
Stella shook her head.
だが贋作の方を使えば、いや、万が一ということもある。
正直どちらが本物かわからない。
Stella hung her head.
君が悪いわけじゃないさ。
I tousled her hair.
しかし、これを作ったのはね。
I doubt Sakura had these kind of skills. If anything, he must have been the one who commissioned them. But to what end, I have no clue. And there was no way of asking him now, of course.
時坂さん。
Asuki suddenly tugged at my sleeve.
なんだ?
突拍子もないことを言っていいですか?
Please, because I'm sure you're thinking what I'm thinking.
言うだけ言ってみろよ。
Has he figured out something?
この贋物を作ったのは
Say Maizono, huh?
根拠は?
ありません。ただ、修復師としての腕を振るえば。
ステラ、どう思う?
She was the expert here after all.
多分無理。筆使いを真似て一部だけ修復することはできても、全部は。
だそうだぞ。
彼女にだったらできたような気がするんです。それだけの腕はあったと思います。
確かにメーヘレンのように過去の作家の筆致を真似て贋作を描いた人はいるけど。
Stella took another look at the painting.
筆の羽、絵の具ののり、かすれ具合、すべてを再現するのは途方もない才能と途方もない観察が必要になる。
直接彼女の仕事を見る機会はあまりありませんでしたが、生前古い絵画や画材を買っているのを見ました。
古い画材？
それらを再利用して絵の修復をするそうです。年月が過ぎた状態のまま復元してほしいという依頼主もいると言ってましたが。
なあステラ、腕さえあれば全部を丸々複写することはできると思うか？
腕さえあれば不可能じゃない。事実ここに存在しているから。
Stella gestured to the two identical paintings before her. True, there's no point debating whether or not it was possible when we had proof staring us right in the face.
これを前園聖が作ったと仮定すると、 彼女の死には新しい意味が出てくる。
口封じですね。贋作を作ったことを
もしくは脅迫され、自ら死
That
を
was my
選んだ。
theory. This hypothesis would also give some semblance to an explanation as to why Sasakura would remodel her corpse into exile of paradise. Is it true then? Was Sasakura really the killer? But if so, then who killed him? GA, where in the world is exile of paradise now? That I cannot answer. That I do not know. Unless, say... No, because that's the thing. They ID'd the body. They ID'd the body. Sasakura ID'd the body. Sasakura ID'd the body. Right? Because they said Sei had no family. Sasakura ID'd the body. So what if in actuality, Sei Maizono was not Sei Maizono? What if? She was killed outside, she was killed elsewhere, brought to the apartment, and was a very convincing doppelganger. And then all Sasakura has to do is be like, yep, that's Sei Maizono. Did they rely on the dental records though? I think, was that what did it? Was it the dental records? Because that's something I don't know if you can imitate that, if you can fake it. Because as far as I'm aware, Sasakura is the one who ID'd the body. Met with Sasakura, the one who discovered her body. Right. I'm thinking.
What?
The sound of Masaki's voice abruptly brought me back to my senses.
どうした？
いえ、今外に青木さんが。
当時が。
What could she need? Have the woman herself straight in before I could think of anything.
よくここにいるって分かったな。
裏に警察のトラックが止まっていたからな。何かあった場合、お前がいる可能性が高いと思ったからさ。
That made sense.
写真を持ってきた。ここで天罰が公開された時の報道写真だ。
Toji produced a photo from a large brown
白
envelope.
黒ですまんな。
いや、いいさ。
A man in the photo instantly caught my eye. It was Sasakura. He was even nearer the camera, so I could make out his expression despite it being a little blurry.
なんでこんな苦々しげな顔をしてるんだ？
Furthermore, he appeared to be glaring at Exile of Paradise.
なあ、ステラ。
Stella suddenly covered part of the photo before I could ask my
映
question.
り悪いから嫌。
She's covering her own face, isn't she?
眠そうだからダメ。
That's different from how you normally look. How?
いや、な、ステラ。この男に見覚えはあるか？
I pointed to Sasakura.
うん。なんかずっと舌打ちしてた。
Sounds more like vexation than obsession. Yeah, he was pissed at its existence. Either it's one he doesn't have, or it's one that shouldn't exist. Well, definitely not a face I'd want to look at all day. I detected no traces of madness upon his visage. If anything, his countenance would probably have appeared far more impassive had he been obsessed with the painting. Then again, I was no psychologist, so even I wouldn't take my own word for it.
もしかすると天罰の複製を作りたかったのではないで。
だとすれば、もっと絵を観察するだろうさ。それにこの日だったら、前園聖はまだ生きている。
それを拒否されてカッとなって殺した。
そうであっても、この写真の段階で悔しさをにじませていた理由にはならない。
We knew with the benefit of hindsight that he'd lost his supposed forager, Sei Maizono, after this photo was taken. And yet, here he already wore the face of a man who knew he wouldn't be able to make a forgery of it.
まさき、お前が前園聖に最後に会ったのはいつか覚え。
Masaki flipped through his notebook.
あ、すみません。その頃はまだ日記をつける習慣がなくて。
That was 2 days before the painting was displayed to the public, and 5 days before her body was found.
前園聖の司法解剖の記録を洗い直す必要がある。
Right, and it was talking about betrayal, right? The killer kept talking about betrayal. The killer said they were betrayed, but they would never betray another. Something like that. So like, Exile of Paradise was somehow is something that made him realize Sei had done something without his approval behind the scenes, and it ended with I don't know how we get to her being turned into the art piece. Maybe that was his fuck you to her, right? Like, you create, like, if it is the way I'm thinking it, and she created this extra art piece that should have never existed, that didn't actually exist, she just copied this. She could just copy the style down pat with no problem. Ooh, maybe that's why he also attacked Girl in Shell, because he could never copy that one either. Natsume claimed that her estimated time of death had been between the late hours of the 14th and the dawn of the 15th. What if she gotten that wrong? If Sei Maizona had already been dead by the 13th, that would certainly explain why Sasakura looked so vexed.
戻るぞ、Masaki。
Oh. So if she was already dead before the painting was shown. That could be possible. That could be possible. She could have planted the evidence. He could have known about it and acted on it, right? But at that point it was already too late because she had planted it. I don't know how she got away with planting it, but it's possible.
あ、はい。絵はどうしますか？
I silently glanced over at Stella.
まだ鑑定終わってない。
Stella shook her
だ
head.
そうだ。
でもここに置いたままだと。
I got why he was worried. Really, I did, but
この人失礼。
Stella's cheeks inflated.
印もつけているし大丈夫だろう。じゃあステラ、あとは任せた。あと電話を貸してもらえるか。
こっち。
There were several things I wanted to look into before returning to the MPD. That's how Stella dragged me over to the phone as I reviewed the details in my head. The sun was already setting by the time Masaki and I arrived at the
ヤギ
MPD.
沼、用意してくれたか。
前園聖の死体検案書と司法解剖記録はこちらにあります。
Yaginuma nodded and passed me the documents in question.
しかし、それを見る限りでは死亡日時は間違いないと思います。
遺体を冷凍するなりすれば、1日2日死亡時刻をずらすことは可能なはずだ。そうすれば、笹倉があんな表情をしていたのにも説明がつく。
贋作を前園聖が作っていたですか。それについての反証はありませんがね。
So she kills herself as a fuck you to Sasakura. He puts her down in the basement where, it's kept to preserve her body for longer. And then he sees the fucking painting at the museum, and that's when he decides to do something extreme with her body. As like a, oh, fuck you? Nah. Like, oh, fuck me? No, fuck you. Yaginuma examined the photo taken the day of the Exile of Paradise exhibit as he spoke.
この笹倉の表情だけで死亡時刻が違っているとはよく思いつきましたね。
それ以外にそんな顔をする理由がないからな。
I checked the postmortem certificate. Then the Seimaizono's proposed time of death was estimated from her corneal opacity, state of rigor mortis, the external temperature, and so on. Natsume was the one who'd handled it, so I saw no reason to doubt her conclusions.
うちの見立てに文句がおありなのはアンさんですか？
Dude, Tokisaga. Speak of the devil.
夏目さん。前園聖の死亡時刻にズレがある可能性は。
エロ難しい仏藩でしたけどな。凍らした形跡はありまへん。そないなことしたら対組織に損傷が出ますからな。
そういったものは認められませんでしたか。
そういうことですわ。亡くなったんは14日夜以降で間違いあらへん。
wonderful. Back to the drawing board we go.
時坂さん。
なんだ
Masaki sounded unnaturally serious for the second time today, so I turned and gave him my full attention. He was staring at the postmortem certificate.
これ誰ですか？
誰って前園
It was a doppelganger. I snatched the certificate from Masaki. Enclosed with it was a mugshot of Sei Maizono's
ま
corpse.
さき冷静になってもう一度よく見てくれ
I handed the photo to
俺
Masaki.
は俺たちはこの人が前園のせいだと認識している
But Masaki actually knew her in person,
俺
so
たち
he
は
could
生前
properly
の彼女に
identify
会っ
her.
ていないのだから
Yeah, it was a doppelganger.
歯型も歯科の記録と一致してますね。
And they did do dental records. That's why I kind of put it out of my mind. I'm like, oh, they did the dental record check.
ですが、自分が会っていた前園さんはこの人じゃありません。
So Sei Maizono stole someone's identity.
どういうことだ？
Agnew pounded his desk and jolted to his feet.
第一発見者もこれが前園のせいだと証言しているんだぞ。
八木沼その第一発見者が偽証していた可能性もある雇用主だった笹倉が前園のせいを見間違えるはずがない何らかの理由でこの別人の遺体を前園のせいに仕立て上げたかったんだろう
至急歯科医に面通しを行います。まさき、お前が知っている前園せいの顔じゃ。
いえ、
前園せいの部屋は遺族もいないため手つかずのままだったはずだ。
それと住民票や戸籍の確認も頼む
分かっています。
Agnew snatched his phone off its cradle.
だったら自分が知っている前園さんは一体。
わからねえよ生きてるのか死んでるのかも含めてな
Just who was the victim and who was the real Sei
ま
Maizono?
さきその写真を見てお前の知っている前園生との違いや同じところを教えてくれ
そうですね。髪の長さは同じくらいでしょうか。あとは似ているような気もしますけれど。
腕を切ったんも指紋を取らせへんためやろか。
そうなのかもしれませんそして天罰の腕のない天使を作ろうと思い至ったのだとしたら
On second thought, however, that didn't add up. We were so sure that Jane Doe remodeled into the Angel of Exile of Paradise was killed on the 14th at the earliest. However, that contradicted the events of the 13th. That was to say, the bitter look on Sakura's face when he saw Exile of Paradise. What if he'd already known by then that Sei Maizono was gone, that he'd lost his chance to make a forgery of Exile of Paradise? Damn it, now I'm going in circles, can't think straight.
一旦落ち着きまひょか。
Natsume gave me a light tap on the shoulder.
まず前園藩とちゃう別の人が亡くなってました。多分自殺。ここまでは確定でよろしおすな。
It does.
その認識でいいと思うまずは現状を正しく認識したい
ほいじゃ次行きます。別の人が死んどったことにより不可解な目撃情報が一つ発生しております。
Sasakura. Where the fuck is Sasakura? There.
笹倉はなぜ別人の遺体を前園生と呼んだのか
さよですな。
However, Masaki didn't look so convinced.
笹倉さんは
Yeah.
前園さんを死んだことにしたかったのでしょうか。
So he kidnapped Sei. Kidnapped Sei. And then made people believe that this other one was Sei and that she was dead so that people would not go looking for her thinking that she's missing. So that no one would find her.
どんな意図があったのか本人にはもう聞けないからこちらで考えるしかないが
笹倉さんが犯人だという可能性はまだありますか？
That is the fucking question, isn't it? So what if Sasakura killed the first one? And then forced Sei to do the rest of them. She was a master art restorer. Now, as far as we know, that only extended to paintings, but we don't know if that wouldn't extend to sculpture as well. What if she was being forced to then recreate them?
そうだな。
You give this one careful consideration. Fuck. You just presenting me with a basic yes or no? I think it goes deeper than that. If we're talking about just the first suspect, victim, the first victim, I do believe it was Sasakura. The subsequent victims, I don't believe so. Because even they pointed out, like, there were discrepancies between how the first one and the second one were done. And then they said it seems like this person's slowly learning how to master this, right? Something along those lines. If we're talking solely about the first victim, I think it entirely possible.
まだ否定するわけにもいかない。最有力の被疑者であることは確かだからな。
笹倉さんが鍵を握っていることは確かなようですね。前園さんが死んでいることにしたかった理由もそこにあるのかもしれませんね。
Masaki nodded.
笹倉が偽証した理由か。
I was pretty sure I could explain that by now. She's actually alive.
前園姓の生存を知っているからこそ、あえて偽証したという考え方もできるな。
どういうことですか？
お前の話じゃ贋作師でもあるんだろ。死んだことにしておけば捜査の手を逃れて動くこともできるだろうからな。
Yup. That way, if Sasakura was holding her hostage, they would never know she'd gone missing if they believed she was dead.
身代わりを用意した。しかしそれでは自殺を図ったという被害者の状況と矛盾するのではありませんか？
Not necessarily. Ignuma brought up a very good point.
偶然自殺を図った人間を見つけた。ああ、ないよな。いや、自殺を図った人間を見つけ、偽装を思いついた。
それで結局前園さんは生きているんですか？
おそらくな。だがまだ疑問が残る。
Picked up Sei Maizono's postmortem certificate once more.
結局こいつは誰なんだ？
調べさせますよ。徹底的にね。
Suddenly, Yagunuma's phone rang.
もしもし。ああ。歯医者への面通しが終わりました。前園姓の保険証を持ってこの写真の女が治療に訪れていたということです。
無関係ではないということか。
Oh shit.
失礼いたします、八木沼管理官。書類をお持ちしました。
The young investigator delivered an envelope to Yaginuma.
ああ、ご苦労。
それは
前園姓の住民票などです。電信で取り寄せました。
Yaginuma procured the papers from within.
住民票、保険証の写し。戸籍謄本がないな。
それが該当人物の戸籍はないとの連絡を受けています。
無戸籍者か。
戦争で亡くなったままなのかもしれません。住民登録法の施行が昭和26年ですから。
住民票があれば保険証は作れるからな。
Remind me of how my assistant's family register and certificate of residence were also a giant
家
mess.
族までは追えそうにないな。
I know she had no relatives in her life, but the fact that we didn't have so much as a trace of them was a real blow. Hell, we had no idea if the owner of the certificate of residence, Masaki's coworker, and the woman whose body we'd found were even one and the same. Has he been killing off all her body doubles? Like, he's had a whole host of body doubles that he's been killing off? Or they've been killing off. Maybe even she's been killing off. Bro.
生きているにせよ死んでいるにせよ
同感だな。
前園聖が居住していた部屋は今捜索をしています。
わかった。それは構わないが。
The question is, where to look? Should probably start someplace that has ties to her. Jofu. Jofu. It's always Chofu. Man, normally... no. Alright, as much as I hate to do this, I'm gonna have to wrap up this recording session here for today. But I'm gonna be back to this real fucking quick. Y'all got me, I'm on the edge of my fucking seat. We got plot twists coming out. We got revelations being made. I'm on the edge of my fucking seat. Oh, actually. Yeah, I just realized today is my day off, but I get another day off in 2 days. I can be right back on this shit. Oh, actually, I might be back to this quicker than I think. Oh. God is good. Let's go. Fuck. Nah, shit's getting real. So I strongly believe Sai Maizono is still alive. I don't think she killed Sasakura. I don't. It's possible she did, but I don't think she did. There's a reason she used. There was the well-used sashimi knife is a big telltale sign. It's got to be Chie. Chie may not have been the one who modified the bodies. I believe that might have been Sai Maizono, right? I believe maybe Sasakura was the one who procured the bodies, right? That's more than possible. Oh, but they said Sasakura doesn't have a car. Well, there was no car parked. That's true. They said there's no car parked by his gallery. Not that he doesn't have one. They said it's possible he could have one somewhere. If he had a way of sneaking out. But I don't think that's the case either. So if that's the case, then I would believe Sei to be the remodeler, right? Well, no, I do believe Sei's the remodeler, but also the one procuring the bodies as well. See, the big question that it all comes down to is why? What's he got on her? Why is Sei doing this if she's involved the way I think she is? What does Sasakura have on her? What kind of blackmail does he have on her? Does he have blackmail on her? Is she doing this willingly? That's another question to consider. This whole time I've been considering that he's got some kind of blackmail on her, that he's like abusive towards her in some way. And then I started thinking of that because Toji brought up the fact that some people commit suicide as like a fuck you, right? They go out in a brutal way to really send a message to the people who put them in that place, right? So that's why I was thinking that Sei had been in like a bad relationship. What if she hasn't been in a bad relationship with him? What if Sei has been in a perfectly fine relationship with Sasakura? She was willingly participating in all this. However, Chie finds out about all this. She reads the magazines, right? And she ends up killing Sasakura. And this actually throws a wrench in Sai's plans. What about that? But I think the big question comes down to why would they do this? Even if Sai is a willing Sei, her name is Sei, not Sai, Sei. Even if Sei was a willing participant, right? Even if she was willingly doing this, why are they doing this? That becomes the big question. Why are they doing this? Whether she's being forced to do it, whether she's doing it willingly, whether she's even involved at all, whoever's doing it, why? Why? She's a master forger, right? And that would explain why they would try to kill off the name say Maizono, right? They would try to kill that person off, say they're dead. Why would they remodel the bodies? How does that benefit them? That's a great question. That's a great question. But I suppose I won't know the answer until I come back. So, like I said, this is going to be the end of this recording session, but God knows I'll be back here as soon as humanly fucking possible. But it's either going to be a quick transition or a new video, but regardless, I will see y'all in the next one. Until then, peace. What is up, everyone, and welcome back to some more of the Shell Part 3 Paradiso. I am back at it again just 2 days later because I am absolutely hooked into this game. Well, all the little different plot twists we got hit with last time, I knew I had to come back to it as soon as humanly possible. So you know what? Fuck a recap. I don't want to waste any time. I just want to jump right back into it. So where we immediately left off, we had been given reason to believe that Sei Maizono, who was supposedly the first victim, supposedly, quotation marks, we have reason to believe she might be alive, and now we're trying to look for more evidence of her being alive. We were given a choice of 3 different areas we could go to. I decided to go to Chofu because it seems like she has a lot of connection to Chofu, and that's where we're at now. So Masaki wasted no time racing out of the car as soon as I parked in front of Chofu Station.
慌てるなよ。まだここだと決まったわけじゃねえんだから。
じゃあなぜここだと思ったんですか？
まず第一に現場から近い。
I retrieved a flashlight and got out of the car.
で次に、まだここの画廊は笹倉の所有になっている。
店だったそのままであれば何かは残っているかもしれませんね。
残っているのは仏さんかもしれないがな。
We've seen all the victims, right? I'm pretty sure. Because if I check my notes real quick. I just thought about that, yeah, because it was a Kemi. Okay, that was the most recent one. And then before that was Ichiko, which was the airfield one. Yeah, I think as far as we know anyway, because Akemi was the one who got hit with the crowbar, right? Let me check the old evidence list. That would be the floodplain body. That was the floodplain head. Blunt instrument, yeah, that was the crowbar one. Yeah. Ooh, we got new character descriptions. Possible she made counterfeits. Yes, yes, yes. She's the one who we're discovering the basement of this gallery, huh? A Jane Doe initially mistaken for Sei Maizono. Okay, okay. We're learning things, we're learning things. So yeah, I think, as far as we know, right? Because like we witnessed whoever the quote-unquote remodeler is, we witnessed them do this to Akame here. She got beaten with the crowbar upside the head. I don't think we saw any kidnappings after that. Doesn't mean they didn't happen, but I don't think we, the reader, saw it. I just want to double check that.
前園さんが殺されていると。
笹倉が一連の犯人であれば可能性は高いさ。
自分が会ったのがあの画廊で働いていた前園さんですよ。
わかってるさ。じゃ、行くか。
We left the car behind us, made our way towards Sasakura's old gallery. The normal hustle and bustle that you'd expect from a station square had long since taken its leave by this late hour. Furthermore, the local shops were all closed, save ones like a liquor store on the corner anyway. I really should think about putting up a TV out here. Then maybe this place wouldn't be such a ghost town at night.
こっちの方は駅前でもこんなに静かなのか。
そうですね。宅地の造成は進んでいるようですけれど、だからこそ少し離れれば空き地だらけですよ。
And like the perfect place to ambush an unchaperoned woman.
ここです。
Masaki suddenly stopped. We'd reached a dark 2-story building with an angled roof and walls as flat as cardboard. The windows were fogged, and even shining my flashlight at them revealed nothing on the inside. Maybe they've been boarded up.
当然鍵はかかっているか。
Gave the door a little nudge to be safe, but it showed no signs of yielding.
どうしますか？ 笹倉さんの遺品を探せば鍵は見つかると思いますけど。
ここまで来て戻るのは時間が惜しいな。警察官を呼んできて開けさせる方がいいか。
捜査令状が必要になるんじゃないですか。
所有者は死んでいるんだ。
I was gonna say not if he's dead, but then I'm like, actually I don't know if that's still a thing. Just because someone's dead doesn't mean you have the full right to go digging through, you know, their property. I had to stop and think of like, though for all my tough talk, maybe we really did need some kind of paperwork.
呼んできますか。
そうだな。待て、Masaki.
I heard floor creak. I immediately called Masaki to a halt after hearing some kind of sound coming from within the old gallery.
Eh?
Masaki quickly caught on and pressed his ear against the glass door. Ears definitely hadn't deceived me. Is someone in there?
お前は裏へ回れ。
I handed my flashlight to Masaki after whispering to him.
わかりました。
Masaki nodded and hurried to the back of the gallery. Meanwhile, I faced the door. Guess I've got no choice but to break in, huh? Here goes nothing. Wait. Now I don't hear anything. Couldn't rule out the possibility that whoever was inside was trying to make a getaway, or they just killed themselves. Or they are at the present trying to kill themselves. Because didn't something similar happen in the first game? Right, you show up to the one guy's apartment who was doing like the Frankensteining shit. Right, and like depending on your choices, if you got there in time, you could stop them. But if you were too late, he had already taken his life inside the building once he knew the cops were coming. If they'd noticed us when we first checked the door, then I had to get in there ASAP. Masaki should be in position right about now. I slowly turned the doorknob, but it refused to yield an inch. Damn it. Well, if stealth's not an option, might as well get as messy as I need to. Took hold of a nearby rock and smashed the pane right above the doorknob. Still night air was torn asunder by the subsequent symphony of shattering glass. Ooh, I like that alliteration. With that accomplished, I reached into the fresh hole. Okay, don't phrase it like that. And unlocked the door. Once done, I burst inside with all the speed and force of a stampede. Crap, I should have brought a spare flashlight. Though I couldn't see shit, I could at least tell nothing was moving. Are they hiding in here somewhere? I warily advanced. Eventually, I spotted something twitching near the dead center of the room.
Masaki!
Without any light, I had no choice but to scream Masaki's name and hope he got here quickly. They in pain? Doesn't look like they were jumped, though. Who the hell did this? Suddenly I saw a light from a flashlight dance across the ceiling. Masaki must have found himself locked out from the rear and consequently circled back to answer my calls. Masaki complied with my request a moment later. Yep, she knew the jig was up, so she tried to end it. Dashed over to the woman on the floor. Left arm was drenched red with blood. No sooner had I seen that than I was checking her pulse. Masaki approached us, his flashlight still focused on the woman. Hey, I see a wing behind her there. Masaki handed me the flashlight and bolted outside. She didn't answer me. Yeah, I'd say do that first. Someone's sitting there bleeding out and you're just like, Maizono, I assume. It's like, hey, bud, maybe make sure they're still alive to answer you. I produced my handkerchief and tied it tighter on the root of her left arm. Though she was bleeding a ton, it didn't seem like the wound was all that deep. Plus, she appeared to be conscious, though her eyes were closed. Now that I had a moment to breathe, I scanned the area with my flashlight. The floor was littered with spatters of blood, a collapsed chair, a knife, and an angel wing as white as snow. The only open door was the one I'd come through. Now what did all this point to? I mean, I believe it's this, but the culprit was still lurking around. Because that's the thing, we hear the creak, but then we didn't hear anything afterwards, right? And like, so I imagine she heard someone like jiggling the doorknob. And like, given recent events, especially concerning Sasakura, I'm guessing it was this, if I had to assume. Is it possible there's still a culprit still lurking around? I guess. The collapsed chair is probably the one that throws me off the most. A collapsed chair. That's a tough one. I think that's the one, the collapsed chair. Like, sure, if she was like sitting in a chair, sliced her arm like that, she probably like doubled over in pain, right? She would have collapsed to the ground, fell out of the chair. It's very possible. Because everything else points to, you know, self-inflicted, right? Blood on the floor, knife. Well, I mean, the angel wing, it could just be a red herring, just proof that it happened, that this leads to the proper whatever. But if my theory, all right, remember, if my oh. Now what if my theory of Chie still being the killer is true? And what if I had it reversed, right? What if Sei wasn't the remodeler and Chie was, but Sei was the one who would have killed Sasakura? Because it would have made a lot more sense then that Sasakura could get into, that Sei could get into Sasakura's gallery. Right? Because they said that whoever got in there, like, there was no signs of like a struggle, right? It looks like someone was invited in, right? They said that there was no bloody clothing left behind other than a pair of slippers, right? And that was the one, and see, that was the one that was amateurish, right? That was the one that was like, oh, we found hair sample here. We found clothing items discarded, left behind. There was a knife left behind. You know, they took the wrapping off of it, so there's no fingerprints found. But like, that one was a bit more sloppy, a bit more novice, compared to the ones we'd seen before. So that's why the one who killed Sasakura is most likely not the one who's been doing the remodeling. So what if Sei is the one that killed Sakura? Okay, but even if Sei is the one who killed Sasakura, this still could be self-inflicted. You know, she doesn't want to deal with the consequences of, you know, her actions that, or, you know, after taking out Sasakura. I don't know. My first thought is to assume it's self-inflicted, but I could absolutely see that being a ruse setup. Because that's the thing. All they heard was a creak, right? All they heard was a creak, like someone stepping on a floorboard. That's it. But there's a collapsed chair on the ground. You know, even if this was self-inflicted, a wound like that, you know, slicing your arm like that, I gotta imagine, unless you're like biting down on something, you're like really fighting back, there might be like a cry of pain, right? There would have been more noises. The collapsed chair and like a body collapsed on the ground, right? Unless she was like straight up just laying on the ground when it happened, which clearly she wasn't. Because then why would the chair be knocked over? The chair being knocked over is what really does it. Because if we didn't hear a chair being knocked over, why is there a chair knocked over? How could the ground have creaked afterwards? I think I've talked myself out of it. I think truly there's something else going on. And like I said, it's that chair. It's that chair that gives it away. It's 110% that chair that gives it away. Because whether or not she was sitting in the chair, if she was standing up and did it and happened to knock the chair over as she fell down, like, there's no reason why the chair would just be toppled over. Doesn't make sense. Right? Why would the chair just be naturally toppled over? Like, oh, she was just laying on the ground and did it. The chair was already knocked over. No, that doesn't make sense. The chair got knocked over. However, we didn't hear a chair being knocked over. We didn't hear it a loud crash, a loud thunk. We heard a floorboard creak. Which means someone was walking around after this had happened. However, that doesn't mean it couldn't have been this. She could have done this. Someone came in to check on her and saw that. I think there's someone still here. I think there is someone here. Regardless of whether or not this is true, I think someone's still here. I'm gonna save just to be doubly safe. Alright. Just be extra safe. But I think there's someone here. Her assailant could still be lurking nearby and hiding. Maybe they fled to the second floor. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. I didn't hear anyone go up the stairs. Does that mean she's here by herself then? And if so, did she cut her own arm? Still, this was an odd place to attempt suicide. No. Wait. Maybe it isn't. After all, she'd probably been trying to turn herself into the angel from Exiled Paradise. The wing next to her was proof of that. Sells it then. The one behind these serial killings must be...
Tokisaka-san.
Masaki returned just then. He had several police officers with flashlights in
まず
tow.
は彼女を病院へ。一連の事件の重要参考人だ。
Cops, presumably mistaking me for a police investigator, followed my orders and immediately started making preparations to take Sei away.
柳沼さんはすぐこちらに来るそうです。怪我人以外は現状の保全に努めるようにと。
分かってるさ。ああ、それと2階の捜索を頼む。
I issued those instructions to a nearby cop.
いるんですか？
いや、そんな物音もしていないから。
Borrowed a flashlight from one of the police officers and lit the room once
そ
more.
この机の上にあるのは
そこの翼が作れますね。
ここで作っていたんだろう
I illuminated a different part of the floor, away from where Sei Maizono had
な。
lain.
拭いてはいるようだが、この床板のシミ。
他の遺体もここで加工したんですか？
それは結婚の鑑定待ちにしておこう。
Just then, I saw the red revolving lights of a squad car flashing from outside. Guess he's finally here.
不法侵入ではありませんか？
And indeed, it was Yaginuma, just as I'd expected. Not that I could have known who else to possibly expect, of course.
細かいことは気にするな。
今病院へ向かったのは？
前園さんです。
It was Masaki who answered.
おそらく。
髪を切っているようでした。
If that were true, she'd probably done so to conceal her identity.
ここに潜伏していたということは犯人で間違いないようですね。
ああ、おそらくな。
またおそらくですか。
大筋はその通りさ。ただ、
Yeah, see, that's where I'm
単純に
at.
自殺を図ったようでは
I
ない
think she
か
did try to do it, but I think there's more to it. Karate chopped Masaki on his left arm.
二の腕を切ろうとしていた。またおそらくになってしまうが、
It was
自分の
likely.
体を天罰の天使にしようとしたんじゃな。
まさか腕を切ってその後どうやるつもりだったんですか？
With a co-conspirator.
俺が知るかよ。幸い死んではいないんだから、後で聞けばいいだろう。
分かっています。しかし結局痛みのせいで完遂できなかった。
おそらく彼女は腕を切った後のことはあまり考えていなかったんだと思いますよ。
Masaki chimed in.
どういうことだ？
そういう精神状態になるんですよ。自分がそうでしたからね。
Masaki hung his head. Yeah, if anyone present knew what would be going through the head of someone who'd attempt suicide, it'd be him.
しかしここにも天罰の絵はないようですね。
Aginuma cocked his head after scanning the room with his flashlight.
夜が明けてから本格的な捜査をさせますが、こういうことをするならば目の前かすぐに見える場所に置いておくものでしょう。
だったらここにはないんだろう。
That's a crying shame. Definitely would have Definitely would have tied up that loose end neatly, considering she must have been more obsessed with Exile Paradise than anyone else in the world. Assuming she truly was a serial killer anyway. But if she doesn't have it, then who does?
先輩、今日はもういいですよ。明日、前園聖の聴取をする予定なので。
まだ調べることがあるんじゃないのか。
ここの捜査は明日にしますし、前園聖の身柄を拘束した今となっては、
Until one does show
が
up.
出ることもないでしょうから。
Until another one does show up. Despite what he said, though, I didn't feel like the case was closed. Not when we still had a boatload of mysteries remaining, such as the identity of the first victim, for one. Still, I could probably allow myself to take a breather, seeing as how this would likely spell the end of the killings.
帰るぞ、マツキ。
That's what they want you to think. Might as well hit the hay for today. Not like sitting around theorizing is going to help anyone right now. That's just what they want you to think. You're giving in to big government over here.